It was just another ordinary day for Robert Thompson as he walked through the downtown streets of his childhood city. The successful businessman had recently returned after 15 years abroad, his empire worth millions, but something felt missing in his life. That's when he saw her, a small figure huddled in the corner of an alleyway, clutching what looked like a worn teddy bear. He wouldn't have noticed, except for the flash of something familiar that caught his eye, a patch on the bear's arm with embroidered initials. His heart stopped. Those were his initials, on the very bear his mother had made him before she passed away, the one he'd thought was lost forever, when he was forced to leave his home as a child. Robert froze in place, memories flooding back like a tidal wave, as he stared at the little girl holding his most precious childhood possession. The little girl looked up, her eyes meeting Robert's intense gaze. For a moment, everything around them seemed to disappear, the noise of the busy street, the people rushing by, all faded into silence. She clutched the bear tighter, clearly afraid he might take it from her. "Hello there," Robert said softly, kneeling down to her level, trying to hide the trembling in his voice. "That's a special teddy bear you have." The child nodded slowly, uncertainty written across her small, dirt-smudged face. Robert noticed her tattered clothes, the worn-out shoes, and the small box of candies she was apparently trying to sell. He felt a lump forming in his throat as he recognized the familiar signs of childhood poverty, the same conditions he had escaped years ago. Something about this chance meeting felt like more than coincidence, as if the universe had orchestrated this moment for a reason he couldn't yet understand. "I'm Robert," he introduced himself, offering a gentle smile that masked the storm of emotions inside him. "What's your name?" The girl hesitated before whispering, "Emma." She was remarkably calm for a child in her situation, displaying a resilience that struck a chord within him. "That bear looks like it's been loved very much," Robert continued, fighting the urge to reach out and touch the familiar stitching he'd traced with his fingers as a boy. Emma nodded again, this time with a hint of pride. "He protects me," she said simply. Those 3 words hit Robert like a physical blow, the exact words he used to say about that same bear decades ago. The coincidence was too perfect, too painful. He needed to know more. "Would you like something to eat, Emma?" he asked, gesturing toward a cafe across the street. "We could talk about your bear. I once had one just like it." For a moment, he thought she might refuse, but then hunger won out, and she carefully stood up, never loosening her grip on the teddy bear that connected them in ways neither could possibly imagine. As they sat in the warm cafe, Emma slowly began to open up. Between bites of the sandwich Robert had ordered for her, she explained that she lived with her grandmother in a small apartment on the edge of town. Her parents had died in a car accident 2 years ago, leaving them with almost nothing. "Grandma's sick now," Emma said, her young voice heavy with adult worries. "That's why I sell candies. The medicine costs a lot." Robert listened intently, his mind racing. He watched as she absently stroked the bear's ear, exactly as he used to do. "Where did you get the bear?" he finally asked, the question he'd been holding back. Emma's face brightened slightly. "It was in a box of stuff Grandma got from the shelter. She said I could have it." She turned the bear to show Robert the patched elbow and the faded initials, RT. "See, that's not my name, but Grandma said it doesn't matter, because he chose me." Robert struggled to maintain his composure as pieces of a puzzle began falling into place. The shelter Emma mentioned was likely the same one where his childhood home had been donated after the bank foreclosure. His bear, his precious companion, had found its way to this child who needed protection just as he once did. The afternoon sun cast long shadows as Robert walked Emma home, his mind whirling with plans. The neighborhood was exactly as she had described, run-down apartment buildings with crumbling facades and broken windows. Emma skipped ahead, seemingly lighter after their meal and conversation. She stopped at a weathered door, turning to wave goodbye. "Thank you for the food, Mr. Robert," she said with a smile that transformed her entire face. Robert handed her a business card. "Emma, could you give this to your grandmother? Tell her I'd like to talk to her." The little girl studied the card solemnly, nodding as if entrusted with a great responsibility. As Robert walked away, he couldn't shake the feeling that finding Emma wasn't just about recovering a piece of his past. It was about something more important, a chance to make a difference in a way his wealth had never allowed him to do before. That night he couldn't sleep. The image of Emma clutching his childhood bear haunted him. He remembered the years of struggling after his father abandoned them, his mother working multiple jobs until her health failed, and finally, losing their home. He had promised himself that if he ever made it, he would help others in similar situations. Now that promise felt more urgent than ever. The call came the next morning. Emma's grandmother, Martha Wilson, sounded hesitant but agreed to meet him. When Robert arrived at their small apartment, he was struck by its cleanliness despite the obvious poverty. Martha sat in a worn armchair, an oxygen tank at her side, while Emma played on the floor with the bear. "Emma tells me you were interested in her teddy bear," Martha said, her voice tinged with suspicion. "I hope you don't expect us to sell it. It's her favorite thing." Robert shook his head quickly. "No, nothing like that. You see," he paused, gathering his courage. "I believe that was my bear when I was a child. Those are my initials, Robert Thompson." He explained about losing his home, about his mother's death, and his journey from poverty to success. As he spoke, Martha's expression softened. "The shelter where we got the donations, it was on Maple Street." Robert nodded, his throat tight. "That was my childhood home." The coincidence seemed impossible, yet there it was, his most treasured possession finding its way back into his life through this child, who reminded him so much of himself. Martha coughed, a rattling sound that concerned Robert immediately. "I'm sorry," she said, catching her breath. "The doctors say my condition is worsening. I worry about what will happen to Emma." Robert left Martha and Emma's apartment with his mind made up. And the next day, he returned with his lawyer, and a proposal that would change all their lives. "I want to help," he told Martha, laying out his plan. "Medical specialists for your condition, a new apartment in a better neighborhood, and a trust fund for Emma's education." Martha's eyes filled with tears. "Why would you do this for strangers?" Robert looked at Emma, who was showing her bear, his bear, a picture book. "Because we're not really strangers," he said softly. "That bear connected us for a reason." Martha studied him for a long moment before nodding. "Emma needs stability, security." Robert smiled, feeling a weight lifting from his shoulders. "I can provide that. And maybe I need this too." Over the following weeks, Robert made good on his promises. Martha was seen by top specialists who started her on a treatment that improved her condition significantly. They moved into a comfortable apartment near Robert's home, and Emma started at a good school. Robert visited often, bringing books and toys, but Emma's favorite remained the old teddy bear with his initials. Sometimes, when Emma wasn't looking, Robert would touch the bear's worn fur, connecting with his past and the mother who had made it for him with such love. As months passed, Robert became a fixture in Emma and Martha's lives. What began as an obligation born from a chance encounter evolved into genuine affection. Emma's resilience and bright spirit reminded Robert of what he had lost in his relentless pursuit of success, the simple joy of human connection. One evening, as he read Emma a bedtime story, she suddenly asked, "Are you lonely, Mr. Robert?" And the question caught him off guard, coming from a 7-year-old with such perception. "Sometimes," he admitted. "My big house feels empty most days." Emma nodded sagely. "That's why you need a bear," she declared, hugging her teddy close. "But you can borrow mine sometimes if you want." Robert felt tears prick his eyes at her innocent generosity. Later, after Emma had fallen asleep, Martha offered him tea in their small kitchen. "She adores you," she said quietly. "You've become the father figure she lost." Robert stared into his cup, emotions churning. "I never thought about having a family," he confessed. "My work was everything." Martha's knowing smile made him realize how much his priorities had shifted since finding that teddy bear in Emma's arms. Something was healing in him. A wound he hadn't even known was still open. The lawyers finalized the paperwork on a crisp autumn morning. Robert had created a foundation in his mother's name to help families facing medical and financial hardships. The first beneficiaries were Martha and Emma, but there would be many more. "You've done more than enough for us," Martha protested when he explained his plans to expand his support to other families. Robert shook his head. Finding Emma And that bear was a wake-up call. I've been chasing wealth thinking it would fill the emptiness I felt after losing my mother and our home. But real fulfillment comes from connection, from giving back. He watched through the window as Emma played in the park across the street, her laughter carrying on the breeze. The teddy bear sat propped against a tree, witnessing her joy as it once had witnessed his tears. In that moment, Robert understood that his mother's love had found a way to guide him home. Not to a place, but to his true purpose. The initials she had lovingly stitched onto that bear had become a beacon, leading him to this new family, and a chance to honor her memory by helping others. As Emma waved excitedly for him to join her, Robert felt his mother's presence, as if she was saying, "This is why you succeeded. This is why you survived." Christmas approached, bringing with it a sense of anticipation that Robert hadn't felt since childhood. He had invited Martha and Emma to spend the holiday at his home, and he found himself fussing over decorations and menus like never before. One evening, while helping Emma hang ornaments on his towering Christmas tree, she asked, "Did your mommy make any other bears like mine?" The question sparked an idea that kept Robert up that night, searching through storage boxes he'd kept locked away for years. The following day, he visited a master seamstress with a special request. "Can you recreate this pattern?" he asked, showing her a faded photograph of his mother with the bear she had made. The woman studied it carefully before nodding. "It will take time to get it just right." Robert smiled. "That's exactly what I want. Just right." As the seamstress worked, Robert found himself sharing stories about his mother, her gentle hands, her unwavering optimism, despite their circumstances, her belief that kindness was the most valuable currency. These were memories he had buried, too painful to revisit until now. As each stitch came together, forming a bear identical to the one Emma treasured, Robert felt another piece of his heart healing. On Christmas Eve, the three of them sat by the fireplace in Robert's living room. Martha was stronger now, her new treatment working better than the doctors had expected. Emma was thriving in school, her natural intelligence blooming with proper support. As they sipped hot chocolate, Robert brought out a gift-wrapped box and placed it before Emma. "This is something special," he explained, his voice thick with emotion. "Something from my heart to yours." Emma carefully unwrapped the package to reveal a new teddy bear, identical to her treasured one but pristine, with the initials E.W., Emma Wilson, embroidered on its arm. "Now you both have a special bear," Martha observed, understanding the significance immediately. Emma hugged the new bear, then surprised Robert by placing her original bear, his bear, in his lap. "This one wants to stay with you now," she declared with childlike certainty. "He told me his job protecting me is done, and now he needs to go home." Robert couldn't speak, overwhelmed by the gesture and the innocent wisdom behind it. Emma climbed onto his lap, bear and all, and whispered, "We can share our bears and be a family. Would that be okay?" In that moment, surrounded by the love of his unexpected new family, Robert finally understood what true wealth meant. Spring brought change and new beginnings to their lives. Robert had been working with his lawyers on something important, something that would make their unusual family official. After months of careful consideration and countless conversations with Martha, who had become both a friend and confidant, he was ready to take the next step. The three of them sat in the garden behind Robert's house, enjoying the warm sunshine and blooming flowers. Emma was teaching her bear, and Robert's reclaimed childhood companion, how to have a proper tea party. "Emma," Robert began carefully, "do you remember when we talked about families, and how they come in all different shapes and sizes?" The little girl nodded, pouring imaginary tea with serious concentration. "Well, I've been thinking that maybe, if you and Grandma Martha agree, we could become a real family." Emma looked up, her brow furrowed in confusion. "But we already are a family," she stated simply, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Martha smiled, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "What Robert means, sweetheart, is that he would like to adopt you legally. He would be your father in the eyes of the law, not just in our hearts." Emma's reaction was not what Robert expected. Instead of excitement, her small face clouded with worry as she clutched both bears tightly. "But what about my real daddy? Would he be sad if I got a new one? The question pierced Robert's heart, reminding him of the profound loss this child had experienced. Martha moved to sit beside her granddaughter, gently stroking her hair. Your daddy loved you very much, Emma, and love isn't something that gets smaller when it's shared. It grows bigger. Robert knelt before Emma, choosing his words carefully. I would never try to replace your father, Emma, but I would be honored to help carry on his most important job, loving you and keeping you safe. He showed her a photograph he'd found of her parents, which he'd had restored and framed. We could keep this in your room, and talk about them whenever you want. They'll always be part of our family story. Emma studied the photo intently, then looked between Robert and Martha. Like how your mommy is part of our story too, because she made the first bear. The adoption ceremony was small but meaningful, held in the judge's chambers with only Martha, Emma's teacher, and Robert's closest friend in attendance. As the judge pronounced them legally father and daughter, Robert felt a profound sense of completion, a circle closing that had begun the day he spotted his childhood teddy bear in the arms of a little girl selling candies. Later, at the celebration lunch in their favorite restaurant, Emma insisted that both bears sit at the table, each with their own tiny plate. They're brothers now, she explained seriously, just like we're a family. Robert caught Martha's eye across the table, both of them smiling at Emma's perfect logic. After lunch they visited the foundation offices, where Robert was establishing programs to help grandparents raising grandchildren after parental loss. Martha had become an invaluable advisor, her first-hand experience guiding their approach. Emma skipped ahead of them down the hallway, pointing out the colorful artwork from other children the foundation had helped. When I grow up, she announced, I'm going to help kids too, and make bears for them. Robert felt his heart swell with pride, recognizing in her the same compassion that had driven his mother. Summer vacation brought a new adventure, a trip to the seaside cottage Robert had purchased. It was a modest place, intentionally so, as wealth had taken on new meaning for him since Emma and Martha entered his life. As they settled onto the porch swing their first evening there, watching the sunset paint the ocean in brilliant oranges and pinks, Robert felt a contentment he had never known. Emma sat between him and Martha, a bear tucked under each arm, telling an elaborate story about their teddy bear adventures. And then they found each other after being lost for years and years, she narrated, making the bears hug, just like us. Martha caught Robert's eye over Emma's head, a look of peaceful understanding passing between them. They had created something precious together, a family forged not from blood but from chance, choice and love. That night, after Emma was asleep, Robert stood at her bedroom door, watching her peaceful form surrounded by her two beloved bears. He thought about the incredible journey that had brought them together, how his mother's loving hands had created a link that stretched across decades, guiding him to this moment. Some might call it coincidence, but Robert knew better. The teddy bear with his childhood initials had been a beacon, leading him home to the family he was always meant to have. 1 year to the day after Robert had found Emma selling candies in that alleyway, they returned to the spot together. It was Emma's idea, a pilgrimage of sorts, to honor their extraordinary beginning. Martha waited in the car, still not strong enough for long walks, while Robert and Emma stood hand in hand at the exact place where their paths had crossed. It doesn't look the same, Emma observed, scrunching her nose. Robert nodded. Places change. People change too. Emma looked up at him with those wise eyes that still sometimes caught him off guard. You changed the most, she declared. Grandma says you used to be sad inside even though you had lots of money. Robert chuckled at Martha's accurate assessment. Your grandma is very perceptive. Emma nodded solemnly. That means she sees things other people don't. She pulled something from her pocket, a small handmade bracelet of woven threads. I made this for our anniversary, she explained, carefully tying it around Robert's wrist. Red for love, blue for hope, and gold for the treasure we found. As Robert knelt to hug her, Overwhelmed by the simple gift and its profound meaning, he felt the missing piece of his life finally completely click into place. The Foundation's first annual benefit gala exceeded all expectations. Dozens of families they had helped filled the ballroom, along with donors and supporters eager to expand their reach. Robert stood at the podium, looking out at the sea of faces, with Emma and Martha in the front row. Emma had insisted on bringing both bears, dressed in tiny bow ties for the occasion. A year ago, Robert began, his voice carrying across the hushed room. I was a successful businessman by any material standard. I had wealth, properties, influence, everything except what truly matters. He paused, his eyes finding Emma's encouraging smile. Then one day, I saw a little girl holding a teddy bear with my childhood initials embroidered on it. A bear my mother had made for me before she passed away. That bear had found its way to Emma when she needed protection, just as it had protected me as a child. The audience leaned forward, captivated by the story. What followed was not charity, though that's what I thought I was offering at first. What followed was salvation, my own. Emma and her grandmother Martha taught me that family isn't just about blood. It's about belonging. As Robert concluded his speech, the room erupted in applause. Later, as they mingled with guests, a journalist approached, intrigued by their story. Some would call it coincidence, she remarked, finding your childhood teddy bear with a homeless child. Robert shook his head. I believe it was more than that. My mother always said that love finds a way to endure, to connect us across time and circumstance. The journalist nodded, jotting notes. And what would you say to others who have achieved financial success but feel something missing? Robert thought for a moment, watching Emma across the room, proudly showing her bears to an elderly donor. I would say that wealth is merely a tool. Used wisely, it can create connection rather than isolation. But the real treasure isn't in your bank account. It's in moments of genuine human connection. As the evening wound down, Robert found himself surrounded by his newfound family. Not just Emma and Martha, but all the families they had helped, each with their own story of transformation. Looking at them all, he understood that his mother's legacy lived on not just in a teddy bear with faded initials, but in this expanding circle of care and connection that was changing lives one heartbeat at a time. 2 years after finding Emma, Robert stood in the newly completed community center that bore his mother's name. The building stood where his childhood home once had been, a full-circle moment that felt like poetry. What had once been a place of loss was now a haven for families struggling with the same challenges his mother had faced. Emma skipped alongside him during the tour, proudly pointing out features she had helped design. A children's library filled with her favorite books, a medical clinic offering free care to grandparents raising grandchildren, a workshop where volunteers taught sewing and other practical skills. In that workshop, a special project was underway, dozens of teddy bears being created for children in the program, each unique but all following the pattern Robert's mother had designed decades ago. Look, Daddy, Emma said, the name still new and wonderful to Robert's ears. Each bear has initials to make it special. She showed him her handiwork, small, somewhat uneven stitches spelling out another child's initials on a bear's arm, so they'll always remember they're loved, even when times are hard. Martha joined them, moving more easily now with her new treatment regimen. She had become the heart of the community center, her wisdom and first-hand experience guiding their approach to supporting families in crisis. We just got the approval for the expansion, she told Robert, her eyes bright with purpose. 20 more housing units for grandparents raising grandchildren. Robert nodded, feeling a deep satisfaction that transcended any business success he'd ever achieved. As they walked through the colorful hallways, Emma ran ahead to greet a new family arriving for orientation. Robert watched as she immediately showed the shy child her special bear, creating an instant connection. You know, Martha said softly beside him, when my daughter and son-in-law died, I thought our story was ending. I never imagined it was just the beginning of something so beautiful. Robert put his arm around her shoulders, his throat tight with emotion. My mother would have loved you both, he said. Sometimes I think she orchestrated this whole thing from wherever she is, sending that bear to find Emma, and Emma to find me. That evening, as they prepared for the center's official opening ceremony, Robert found Emma sitting quietly in the workshop, surrounded by the bears in progress. She held the original bear, his bear now theirs, turning it gently in her hands. "Penny for your thoughts," Robert said, sitting beside her. Emma looked up, her expression thoughtful beyond her years. "I was just telling your mommy thank you," she said simply, "for making this bear that brought us together." Robert felt his heart constrict with love and wonder at this child, who had become his daughter in every way that mattered. "Do you think she can hear me?" Emma asked. Robert nodded, unable to speak for a moment. "I think she hears you perfectly," he finally managed. Emma smiled, satisfied with his answer, and carefully placed the bear in a place of honor on the workshop shelf. "He'll stay here sometimes," she decided, to watch over all the new bears being born. As they walked hand in hand to join Martha and the gathering crowd outside, Robert realized that the initials on that treasured teddy bear had become more than just a connection to his past. They had become the first letters of an entirely new story, one filled with purpose, family, and a love that spanned generations.